Most careers have stressors that can eat at you. Deadlines for projects due, falling short of sales goals, or even unruly coworkers. But to those in the emergency 911 profession, these stresses can be truly detrimental to one's psyche and mental health. But how can emergency telecommunicators bounce back from these traumatic events? This is LifeLine. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of LifeLine 911 with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I'm your co host, Gary, and today we are going to be discussing bouncing back from traumatic events. In our previous episode, it was a little heavy. We kind of talked about critical calls that happen and how to work your way through those. But the after effects of that are just as important to know about and to spend time making sure that you're good to continue and to be able to help other people. So, Erica, you were always the go-to person when we worked on the shift. I'd be like, somebody's crying. Erica, go talk to him because you know I'm dead inside. So how do you do that? How do you help people back from the wilderness, as it were?
Well, that is true. I do have a few people that do or have through the years come and, talk about a call that they've taken or, something that they heard on the phone or, you know, uh, a shooting call and they want to talk it out. And most of the time they're coming to say that they wish there was something that they could have done or they're wanting to talk out the steps that they took. And they're wanting me to say either, yes, you did everything right, or agree with them if they say they didn't do everything right. And there have been many a time when I've said that there's absolutely nothing different you could have done. You followed your training, you took the call, or if it was an officer in need of assistance or something similar to that, a crash or something awful that's happening on the radio, no, you closed the channel. You made all the notifications you were supposed to make, and you got them the help that they needed. You followed all of the protocols. Maybe not every step in the order, but you did the things you were supposed to do. There was nothing you could have done that would have changed the outcome of this call. And that helps for like 2 minutes because
Yeah,
what's really going on is deeper, right? Their psyche is injured. Their heart is injured. And then that's when I go into, I'm not a professional that can help you work through that. But what I can tell you is use the resources that you have available to you. And then I go through the list, starting with, what's immediate often is peer support if they're available. And let me just say this. I'm a fan, I am a supporter. I absolutely believe wholeheartedly in the official peer support, right? Those people who have gone through the training. But in lieu of those people, find someone to talk to. Don't go through it by yourself. If your agency or your department has an employee assistance program, make sure you take advantage of that. But what you should not ever do is just go home, sit on the couch, and stew. I make that a part of my speech, if you can call it a speech.
yeah. I find drinking helps though. So do you
Really,
recommend that?
Gary?
No, don't drink. Don't drink your sorrows away. That won't help anything. But yeah, like
Wow.
these because they're concerned that they could have done more. And I think that's really one of the hallmarks for people that tend to gravitate to this industry. I mean, yes, of course, there's the power, the glory, and the money that comes along with the job. But when you strip
Okay.
all that away, what you end up with generally is people that have a servant's heart. They want
Mm-hmm.
to help others. And
Yeah.
when you have calls that are really difficult, when you hear things on either the phone or the radio that you know you'll never not hear
Mhm.
for the rest of your life, that's that's really traumatizing to anybody, but I think doubly so to people that are here to help because they don't
Mhm.
want people to get hurt or injured or lose their lives, and they take a lot of that on themselves.
Yeah.
And to work through that is challenging because you've got to be okay with, you've got to understand there are things that happen that are bad that
Mhm.
nobody can fix on this earth,
Mhm.
and you're still doing a job that's important, that's critical to be done, and there are other people you can still help, but that's really not a I think a good way to kind of make someone feel better because honestly you're going to feel bad for a while until you can
Yeah.
work through it.
Yeah. And we one of the season one, I think probably I want to say, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like it was within the first five or so episodes we talked about how to take care of yourself. And if you've not heard that episode, I would strongly encourage you to go back and listen to that episode because we talked about all the things we're going to talk about here. And n- because of the things that are happening right now and have the potential to happen because of the political climate that we're dealing with, and talking about, active attacker and, um, just those horrific calls that come when people are afraid and scared and just take out their fears and frustrations on the masses, really, because if we're going to be frank, that's what we're talking about. And how you deal with those is so important. Feeling how you feel is normal. Your feelings are valid. Don't let anybody tell you that they're not. Whatever you're feeling, it is a valid thing. It's how you deal with it. It is how you respond to how you're feeling. That's why I can't say it enough. Do not go through it alone. In the absence of a professional, if that's not something you can get to right away, talk to your friends, talk to your family. If you've got a family member in there with enough, to be able to handle it, if all they can do is listen to you, let them. But the worst thing you can do is fold in on yourself and try to and suck it up, buttercup. That was a cute saying for another time and another place. This ain't it.
Hmm. And I mean that saying I think is valid in some instances, meaning like
Mm-hmm.
if you're in the middle of a emergency, suck it up, buttercup, we got to get through this, we'll have time to mourn and work it through later,
Okay.
but for the long-term health you do have to confront the the demons that you're going to
Yes.
be dealing with. And it's, I think, helpful to acknowledge that. So you might have a call where like a baby burns to death. You might have a call where an old person gets run over by a car. You
Mm-hmm.
might have a call where there's an explosion,
Mm-hmm.
and it hurts a lot of people. And that is something that can happen. And acknowledging that, I think, is the first step to, I don't want to say have your defenses up, but to be aware
Mm-hmm.
of the things that can happen so you're not caught off guard, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
It makes absolute sense. You have to first acknowledge that you are not a robot, and that, especially our 911 friends, the ones that are constantly hearing the worst of the worst. Because, and I say it all the time, and I believe it wholeheartedly, 911 operators are inside that person's nightmare with them. So they are hearing all of these horrible things, and they have a physical and emotional and psychological reaction to those things. And if you think that you're not having one, you are fooling yourself. Because the longer you do this work, think of it like a trash can: dump, 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 dump. And eventually, may take you longer than some and not as long as others, but eventually it's going to get full. There's going to come a time when it's time to deal with that and, in effect, take the trash out. You are no different. You have to decompress from these things. You just have to find a healthy way to do it. And if you're not sure, there's all kinds of national helplines, crisis hotlines that are confidential. And just because you are a first responder does not mean that you cannot avail yourself of those resources. Not true at all. If you don't want to talk to somebody on the job because you're worried about how it's going to make them see you, then there are others. And maybe Gary, that maybe that ought to be something after this episode. Maybe we drop it in the chat or something. A few hotlines for people to be able to reach out to or give to someone else. I
That's a
think
great
the
idea.
main thing, yeah, the main thing is do not think that makes you less of a capable first responder because it's you realize that it's time for you to take care of yourself. Takes and if your agency doesn't offer it, ask for a day or two off after some of these major events.
Yeah. Just because you don't want to. It's like if you're working out and you tear a muscle, you don't want to go back to the gym the next day
Agreed.
because it needs time to heal. Um, when we did the how not to take care of yourself episode, we
Mhm.
had a colleague of ours come up to us and say how much that had deeply affected them because
Mhm.
they didn't even realize all that they'd been kind of holding in. And this is someone who'd been doing the job for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's good to have that catharsis
Mhm.
to to cleanse it off your shoulders so you're not holding on to that because there's so much bad that you're going to hear on the radio, on the 911 lines, and compounded by the fact that for whatever reason, a lot of people that call 911 these days are not as uh, congenial as they used to be with the callers for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Like they
Yeah.
just get really mad at the 911 operators.
Yeah.
Um, it, it's important to let yourself work through that because if you
Yes.
don't, it's going to just build up and calcify, and you become angry and bitter at the world, and
Mhm.
then you're not in a position to help anybody because you can't
Yeah.
help yourself.
Yeah. And speaking of this colleague of ours, this person didn't even realize just how they didn't realize that the trash was full. They didn't realize that they had been dumped and they had been taking in and taking in and taking in and taking in for years. And there were physical there was physical evidence that something was wrong. They knew something was wrong. They just didn't know what was wrong. And then they heard that episode and they're like, "Holy smokes. This might be what's going on with me." And as a result, they reached out to their family and said, "Hey, I need you guys to be aware of some things." And to our knowledge, which 'cause we don't pry, we're not going to go back and ask. It was an honor to be, just told that, hey, this episode helped. Um, but to our knowledge, that person is better. But this is someone who's been doing it a very long time. And I'll tell you something else that really kind of threw me when we found this out is at first glance, you would never know.
No, never have suspected.
The work product did not change. It was at top tier, exceptional, all the things.
Mm,
There was nothing when I say that, there was evidence, but I mean evidence for them. But us looking on the outside, even as her supervisors, I said her, I didn't mean to say her, but as supervisors, we mm-mm. If you'd asked me, I'd have bet the farm and a little more that everything was fine.
yeah, and just because people are good at masking their
Mm-hmm.
emotions, if they've had to do it a long time, especially someone who, uh, I don't want to say they're trained to do it, but as a
I mean,
As a 911 call taker, you kind of are trained to,
hmm
mask maybe some of the contempt that you have for the callers if they're being very vulgar to you. So
or or suppress your
suppress, yeah,
reaction to what's going on because that's not to say you don't feel it. You
not
do
at all.
feel it, but you're not allowed to, you can't live, you might be in their nightmare with them, but you can't experience it with them because you have to be, the learned friend, the cool, calm, collected voice on the other end of the phone in order to help them work through what they're going through. But if you think that you're unaffected completely, totally, I beg to differ. And over time, it just builds up. And it may not be a long time if you take that active attacker call or that bomb that exploded and you're being described horrific things and you've never taken a call like that before. You go home to lay head down to pillow and all you can hear is that call playing over and over and over and over again in your head. That's an indication that you might need to talk to someone to offload that. And will it be gone in one conversation? Maybe not. It might be enough. But if it's not, put in the work for yourself because not only could your work begin to suffer, what about your family?
Yeah, your family, your relationships, your health,
Friends,
your
yeah,
mental
all,
well
yeah,
being,
hmm
happiness,
yeah,
and it it can get really challenging to help others when you're in that state. One of the things that I will sometimes do if the employee takes a difficult call and they want to is I'll offer to sit with them and listen to the call again and again and again. Um, Only if they want to, but I think that doing that sometimes mm, helps process what happened a
hmm
little bit better
hmm
and removes the mystery or the gaps that your mind has and fills in with the worst things.
yes.
Um, that may be a strategy to use if you want to, but I wouldn't make somebody do that, of course.
No, but especially if they're take the active attacker, and I keep referencing that because that's what's in the news right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
unfortunately, because of the political climate that we're in right now, it's sad, but we may not have seen the last of that. Um, we have those kinds of things happen all the time, but I think it would be unrealistic to think that it will not escalate because of the climate that we're in. But if you take that kind of call and have to go back and listen to it again, it may not be a bad thing because now we can dissect, right? So if you're thinking that I missed this or I missed that or I didn't get this or I should have said that, maybe like Gary suggested, going through it, now we can pick it apart. And you can walk away knowing that you did either A, all that you could do, or even if there were some areas that could probably use some improvement, you're probably going to find it's not nearly as bad as you think. Maybe you could have asked this question a little sooner, or maybe phrased it this way. Doesn't mean you did a poor job overall. It just means that there's just a little learning to do.
Hmm.
But in the end, you'll find out that it still wouldn't have changed the outcome.
There are, I think, very few times where a a mistake is so egregious that
Mm,
it does like change, like putting the call at the wrong location across town. That is a big error. Uh,
sure.
uh, uh, and if that's something that happened, you have a choice to either learn from that and not do it again, or if that's something that's still eating you and you can't keep going on, maybe find a different profession.
Yeah.
But I don't think that anybody wants people to leave this profession
Mm,
uh, that are really trying to do their best. And on the same token, I don't think people want people to try and stay in this profession if they can see how much it eats at them and makes them, I don't want to say unpleasant, but it makes them hard to bear.
Sure. And the odds of you entering a call or not, or the way you enter it, ultimately being the difference between life and death. It doesn't happen very often. Has it happened? Absolutely. Can it happen? Absolutely. That's why we require that you be diligent, right? Lean on your training. Get more training if you feel like you need it. But those those circumstances are pretty doggone rare when you think about how many calls we take and enter on a daily basis all over this country. So I wouldn't stay there. But
Hmm.
if you follow your training, the odds of that happening are slim to none. What we're really talking about is when those horrible calls happen. You've done all that you can do. You've done your best. You did what your training told you to do, and you're still experiencing grief over what happened. Right? That's empathy. That's human emotion. That's caring about other living people. You are capable of that because you are human first and a first responder second. That's ultimately true. I mean, and some may disagree, but we don't hire first responders. We train people to become first responders. So you have to take care of your humanness first, even as you do this work, or else you won't be fit to do it for long.
Right. And finding healthy and positive ways to do that are, they're not easy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if depending on your personality. Like for me, I'd almost rather have someone pull my fingernails out than have to talk about my feelings about something. But
What?
sometimes that's what you have to do, and it can be a hard, difficult road. But sometimes getting better is that way, and you've
Hmm.
got to trust in yourself enough to take that path and get better.
Yeah. And these resources that your department or agency may have, I cannot imagine there's somewhere in the US anyway that does not have some form of a mental health wellness esque plan, something where you can reach out and say, I need to talk to someone, even if it means it's a department psychologist. So be it. Because most of us have to go through some sort of mental health screening to get these jobs. So if you go to these people and say, I am struggling with A, B, and C, even if your agency is primarily for sworn, I bet you there's a resource. I bet you they say, maybe not me, but I can get you somebody. I can't imagine that there's absolutely nothing, but the first step has to be yours, unless, of course, you see it in another employee, or if you, because we talk about that often here too. If you see something, say something. If you see an employee that is clearly not doing well, you don't have to know why. Doesn't have to be work related, or it could very well be work related. Maybe check in. Say, you okay? Because you seem a little stressed, more so than normal.
Hmm.
Even if it's the grouch of the bunch, still reach out and ask the questions. And if you don't feel comfortable, reach out to your leadership. That's what they're there for. That's why they get the extra 15 cents an hour.
Whoa there. uh, but yeah,
Too
I think
much? Not a whole 15 cents an hour?
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, the looking after one another, I think, is one of the, you know, the key aspects of our industry.
Hmm.
Being your brother or your sister's keeper. That's
Absolutely.
I think that's a real truism,
Yes.
and because they may understand resources that aren't available to you, you may just need to talk out a situation with
Yeah.
somebody like Erica. I know you said that you don't talk about you only talk about the funny calls with your mom, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She
Um,
gets the funnies.
she gets the funnies, and that's great.
Yes.
And you know, you might have someone in your life that's all you need to do is talk out some funny calls, and now you're feeling better about your job or your life or your career, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Or it may need to go deeper, but don't be afraid to start that, because there's there's no substitute for good mental health.
Agreed. Especially in this profession, because well, obviously ours is not the only one, but it's the one we're in. And we see and hear some pretty gruesome stuff at times. And it is just, it's important that you take care of yourself. And if you find that you have issues with um, self medicating, things like that, then there are resources for that too. I just can't stress it enough. Be brave. Be brave and don't worry so much about how you will be perceived when it comes to your mental and emotional health. Reach out.
Well, we hope that you all found this episode somewhat edifying and reassuring. If you are going through anything difficult, know that you are not the only one. Uh, it's a very stressful and difficult time, especially in, I think, first responders' lives right now, because there's so many things going on at the same time. So it makes the day interesting. Uh, as the ancient Chinese curse said, may you live in interesting times. I think we have achieved that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
we thank all of you out there who are first responders, be you emergency telecommunicators, police, fire, EMS. Uh, Thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. Please know that we really support you and are with you, and stay safe while you're out there. And if you have any comments or questions you'd like to add or ask us, you can shoot us an email at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com or leave a comment down below. From all of us at Lifeline 911, I'm Gary,
America.
and we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about today's topic or topics you'd like to cover in the future, please reach out to us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. This has been a production of Lifeline 911, copyright 2026. Until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.